Hi, this is Sheila with Conscious Conversation Central, and today is Tuesday, June the 19th, 2018, and I'm back again with my gal pals, my posse, Lisa Flamino Rush and BZ Rieger. Yay! I'm so glad you could peek in and join us for a bit today, BZ. And so we're going to talk about imagination, one of my favorite things, because well, as I was saying before we started recording, the overarching energetic that was set at the beginning of this astrological new year is through imagination, a lost opportunity is regained. That is the Sabian symbol that was present at the time of the new moon for the new astrological year. And that sort of, in my mind, sets the tone for the entire year for the energetic. And there's been a lot actually out in all sorts of different publications, different folks' blogs in regards to imagination, and coming to the conclusion, at least for myself, that is a foundational building block of creation for creator beings. I mean, that's every single thing you can lay your eyes on, and a lot of things that you can lay your feels on started in that imagination first. There's
everything.
There's not one thing in all of this creation that didn't start with imagination. And if you think so, I'd love to hear. If you think otherwise, I'd love to hear that in the comments. But I mean, really think about that. That's a huge, and we're told from the time we're little that imagination is play and not important, and don't do that, you're a daydreamer and all that sort of thing, because it's the idea of, well, that's not real and not worth your time, because that's
it's right, because what we're really in is not real, and there's no such thing as time, so those would all really go together. They actually make complete sense in a nonsensical world.
Well, I guess you're right about that. And that's kind of where in this 3D moment we find ourselves, isn't it? In a nonsensical world. I mean, even the most stalwart third dimensional being at this point is kind of starting to look around and say, something's kind of out of whack here. This is nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, we're going to talk about using our imaginations in all sorts of ways.
And everybody holds imagination in different ways. So as you said, Sheila, a lot of people were really hammered as kids about not using your imagination, about not using that. It's a frequency within your being that changes the very fabric of the solid nature of things, of stuff. And it brings it from the antimatter, the inner hyperspace, the etheric realms, and actually pulls it in to matter. And you can use different components to, let's say, construct, or use your imagination as a construction tool. But it's that very tool, is a good way to hold it this particular way, that gets you started. And so I think it might be helpful for a moment to play with and one way might be to say it is to kind of to oil up or to flex the, the out of your imagination part to get you rolling, to play with that if you're not already used to doing it. And so do something with imagination, not because you need to, okay, I hear this as a tool and I can use this as an actual construction thing and I'm going to go do X, Y, Z, because then there's an attachment to it. Then there's, well, I'm either going to prove this wrong, or why isn't it working for me, or, so that's part of getting that,
Easy, if you can hear me, you're frozen.
Am I frozen?
Skipping around.
Okay, let's see.
She'll come back.
Am I back?
Come back, busy.
Am I back?
Yes, you're back now.
Oh. Okay, well, let's see if that works.
Okay.
So that's part of the tool for kind of lubing and flexing and stretching your imagination muscles again. It's to at least notice those roadblocks that very quickly try to come in.
I will say this for me in beginning to use my imagination again, which, oh my gosh, I'm being slammed by something in this ear, so I'm sorry. It's kind of like knocking me a little bit. In dusting off some of that and flexing the muscles and getting back used to it again. It is that not being attached to, that's not an easy task there. For me, it's not being attached to things is also habit, being attached to things. So learning to not be attached to things.
Am I frozen too, or is it just you guys?
But I wanted to mention that because it is something that as I'm dusting off my imagination and taking it out for a little joyride, not being attached to the outcome or lack thereof, because that's where that attachment starts showing itself, is something to, for me anyway, to just be mindful of one way or the other, it's okay. And
well, the attachment is illusory. The attachment is wholly a linear polarity, dualistic construct. It is not in any way, shape, or form the nature of the and the regular flow of a creator being. It just isn't. It's something born of and developed and honed here in the old three-dimensional world and lower form. It's
you're
not
speaking of attachment, right?
I'm speaking of attachment. I'm speaking of well, I'm trying to think of different ways that we hold the concept of attachment where well, what's, if I can't do it right or I can't do it now, what's the point? All that kind of, because creation is the point. So on the one hand, it's really kind of hard. Well, this is a thought, because I play so much in imagination and create so much from imagination, to back out of it to a place I used to be is difficult. But one of the, I guess, the precursors to really fully stepping back into and remembering, actually reattaching, reconnecting, refiring all of your ways that you're really good at imagination is to realize that the things that block you, that very quickly block you, of attachment and all those kinds of things, are completely part of the false construct. And they're all completely validated and enhanced and, supercharged here in the false construct to keep you from that. Even if they don't say, well, don't use your imagination, but they doing all sorts of other things, which actually blocks the power of your imagination, because we wouldn't be here now if we had kept that connection.
I guess part of the reason that that's coming up for me and the way it is what something just occurred to me as you were speaking there is, and I don't know if this is a question or my own smarmy, so I'll just put that right out there. To fire up the imagination, to create, generally, at least in this 3D construct at the moment, wouldn't it be a genesis of a want or something that you'd like to see in your own field, or something that you would like to participate in, and therefore automatically comes with some attachment?
Well,
otherwise,
okay. So there's really good examples of that attachment, and that, is it valuable enough, and is there usefulness to it, and a want. So if you got a want, then you got to have a lack, because you don't want to have the lack, you want the want, right? So again, the question is a great question, and the first way to explore that question is, where is who is the being, who's the I that's asking the question, and the perspective there, and is the what is the frequency vibration that the being that's asking that question holds? Because in a true open, fully open-hearted, expansive nature, that's like a new invention. That's like a new, the things you just stated there is like, what's that? Because so maybe let's flip it for a moment. The other side, fully in creation. Creation is just, it's like you breathe. Although some people may say, well, I got to breathe because I'll die if I don't breathe. Okay, well, that's not what I'm talking about. You just breathe, right? Or the sun shines, or, air moves in different currents. So creation is for creation's sake.
Right.
Just because it's fun, just because, the bird sings, all that kind of thing. It's not to create something to then market it and sell it. It's because it's like the frequency of it is the in-breath and the out-breath. So you create and you let it go, and then you create and you let it go, and you create and you let it go. Now, the creation that you made, you may want to create or co-create with something, but that in essence is letting it go, and then you go, oh, look at that, I want to, play with this. So if that's what I was saying, if we can get get the out of the rustiness out of our whole way of doing that, and just play. Like so many times, and I was, guilty of it too, when I was doing, more often doing art, and I settled on, I liked soft pastels, because then there was nothing in between. I could just do it with my hands, so I could have it very tactile and feel it. But there are times where I thought, oh, well, I want to do it, but I don't want to waste the paper. Now I can see what a ridiculous thing that is to say, because I was creating. But, it's always, well, the pastels are expensive and the paper is expensive. And if you're not going to really be good at it or really do something that's worthwhile, well, okay, excuse me, but aren't I worth looking at and playing with and, doing anything? And do I have to hang it over here? And, so again, that's all of, so actually it just comes to mind that just playing with the concept of getting unrusty at using your imagination really helps you break a whole lot of other things down and is part of the flow to moving to what we're doing. Because, and so I want to step just for a moment on the very expansive side of creation, in that as you had started at the beginning, Sheila, it's how, all the things that we think of that are cool, the cell phone or this or that thing, are creation. Of course, the irony on an awful lot of these things is they weren't 3D beings that created, but that's a whole nother conversation. So they're not just new inventions that someone finally put this together and that together, and they're all off-planet technologies. But nonetheless, those were creator beings, and they created it. So it's how we're very quickly moving into, again, for the first time, embodiment here, creating. It's how we'll create the outside. So we've already talked about, and we'll talk a lot more as we experience more of it, that the new earth is within us. It's not over there on 2nd and Main is the new earth, and we're going to go take a taxi and we're going to get there. Or those who are waiting in the Barker Lounge, or someone's going to pick up send a limo over and take me over when it's ready. So we create it within us, and then as we use our imagination, as we use our frequencies, we actually will then build individually and co-creatively the actual components that will then pop out into the physical, tactile part of it.
Well, I'm beckoned to say, or to reiterate, should I say, that I myself know full well that I'm a creator being. I have walked around and created all kinds of crap using the poorer judgment side of my imagination, and that has certainly popped out into the physical for me to see, touch, and feel on a really, up close and personal basis. So,
like the monsters under the bed kind of a thing.
Well, that, and I'm also thinking of how I, for months talked about how it might be easier for me if my husband had someone that he could, leave me for. So, I mean, yes, it's the same kind of thing.
Oops.
Well, I mean, but that's a true statement. Lisa was here. She knows months and months.
Well, I just wanted to add that for me, I'm the reason why I was unhappy with all my unconscious creations were because I was creating things I do not wish to experience. And so for me, it's all about the experience. And I feel like I'm here to experience. And I want to do it consciously now. I want to choose my experience. So I'm really using my imagination to divine what that experience would be. And so for me, this helps me with the attachment piece. I will focus on the experience itself and how it is that I wish to feel. And then I allow the universe or the me that is out here to bring me what I wish to experience. And I'll even hold it. Sometimes I'll have a specific idea of a thing that I wish to experience. And I will say, this and even better is on its way to me right now. And I really feel that in my body. I'll get that rush. and to me, it's the rush of creation now. I know that is on its way to me. And by just being open to well, it's allowing it to look like however it's going to look like. I don't use my imagination to decide every fine detail. For me, it's more an invitation to play with me, because I've played, I do well playing alone, yes. But it's more fun sometimes to invite another being to play, because they bring themselves to the table. And I get to experience a gift from them, and I like that reciprocal. So I'm holding it as I'm inviting an experience into my life.
Well, I like what you're saying there, because it brings to mind, for me, something that Greg Braden talked about, that in speaking with, I guess, some pretty high up, like monks and whatever, in trying to find out what the differences were in the way they pray or whatever. And he was told that what they do is they marry the emotion, the feeling with, and so what you're saying there is telling me, or it's the same energetic I'm feeling it, is the emotion, the feeling that you're evoking in yourself.
Yes.
And then just allowing that out there. And you and I both have had that feeling, that rush of creation now is what I know that to be as well. And so it's just, for me, I think getting the squeakiness, and for me, getting Smarmy to, take a back seat, or hey, you can ride shotgun, you just can't drive.
Right.
That sort of thing. And it takes practice, for me anyway. I mean, Smarmy's been running this show a long time over here, and he's not going to just go away, because I'm patting him on the head. Yeah. So,
well, he's used to taking the lead.
Right.
Right. And so that needs to stop, absolutely. And as you say, shotgun and that kind of stuff. So both in your own ways, you've brought up really good illustrations as well that that relate to the nuance of imagination and creation, and where in the process of your expansion that you are. So, for example, Lisa was saying, and Sheila, you'd mentioned about it too, I unconsciously create all these things. Well, okay, yes, from a linear standpoint, it was unconscious, except that you're here to create and experience things to pull you as far out on that trajectory away from source to then, have all of that dross come off and expansion happen. So there is a good example of the imagination was, and non-attachment to that, to what you're creating. Because your soul, on a lot of instances, and your higher selves are thinking, great, spot on, good on you, you're doing fab, keep going. Because all of those situations that you got yourselves into, we all did, and created, we actually did them. There was one of those beings in there that was absolutely doing it on purpose. It may not have been the little being sitting in these chairs, but all the other ones were. Why? Because that got us to a place to navigate. Oh, let go of the ego mind, open the heart. Oh, being conscious. Oh, what's the difference of expansion? Oh, and they were all still imaginative, incredibly amazing creations. It's just the attachment to, the judgment of, right? Mm-hmm. That frames it on that. So as we more and more and more, whether we're consciously choosing to do it, whether we're more than 100% committed to it, or we're fighting tooth and nail all the way, we are on an expansion trajectory. Okay, and how we choose to do that, creatively or not, imaginatively or not, is entirely up to us. And we will reap the imaginative, creatively attached or non-attached all the way through, whether it's, woohoo, or, as the concrete grinds along us. But when we're having that expansion, then, and that integration, then there is the alignment from the imploding in of our higher selves and our soul. And so what we set out to create, what comes by to create, actually comes into alignment from the soul perspective, not the entity that perceived itself as little and the ego mind. And that's another, these kind of things are all interwoven, because that's why the smarmy needs to take a supportive role. That's why the judgment and the attachment needs to dematerialize, because as that implosion happens, the little being is not running the show anymore. It's just not happening. And so when you're thinking about imagination, Sheila, you talked about when we started about a want, don't you? Just because you want to, well, yeah, because that's the little one in the chair that wants the want. The other, the soul, your higher selves, which is you, not outside, for the most part, it's all coming in. Some people still have a lot out here, but most, it's, coming in, and there's tube of toothpaste coming out. So that's their purpose. So your soul's purpose is now expanding in the creation, the play in the creation, and it's fun and it's expansive and it's amazing. But in some instances, if you're looking at the two between the expansive you and the little you is going, well, I don't think this is so great, and whose big idea was this? Because there's attachment, there's judgment, there's all those kinds of things which are diametrically, oftentimes seem like, that. And part of that is, a really good example of why that is because of the programming, because of the small, because of wanting something outside of us, because of wanting something just for us. Because, well, I want to have something just for me, it's not a bad thing. But absolutely not. Except that a lot of times that feeling, the frequency of that comes in because we don't feel like, we don't experience like we have anything, because that's part of the false construct. So, okay, maybe this is, maybe this really isn't about imagination so much, but how to move through to get there, how to clear off all the stuff on the table. If you're inside and you're going to create something and you've got paints and cardboard and all sorts of tools, well, but you can't do it if first when you get to the table where you want to do it, right, there's dust and bricks and sharp pokey things that have no relation to doing something. You got to clear all that off the table. And in clearing it off the table, one can use one's imagination to help that. In fact, that actually speeds the process along and gets all the rusty, creaky, squeaky stuff out of your imagination muscles.
Well, one of the things, the one who had trouble visualizing, I'll just say this. One of the tools that I've been using quite a bit over the last, from the last full moon to this new moon that just passed on the 13th, was a very powerful astrological time for releasing things and beginning new intentions. And so I used my imagination and my visualization, which is getting better because I'm actually using it. Who knew? Yeah, wandering around saying I can't visualize does nothing for one unless one sits and does, like visualize.
Right.
Yeah, right. Big surprise. But so just using that, to clean and clear, like you were saying, my field itself, has been very helpful for me. So when you talk about the exercising of these muscles, myself in particular, I would say things like, I'm not good at meditating. And then now I'm realizing that I didn't really give it much of a chance before, or just, gave up on the first couple of tries because, I lay down to try to meditate or whatever and fall asleep, or, can't shut the head up or whatever. I can't do something once or twice and say, well, I tried. Because that's not helping anything for me personally. That's what I know now. And it is my imagination through that visualization process that helped do all of, or, for me, at least what I'm seeing, it helps in that clearing out as well.
Right. So let me stop you there on a couple of things. Yes, that's a common refrain about, meditation and the falling asleep. And here's a really fun quantum tip about that, or multidimensional tip about that. When you're falling asleep like that, for that particular, when you're setting yourself in that frame, right? And that is your intention. Especially if you even, made some moves to have a little sacred space and that kind of stuff, and you're falling asleep. When you fall asleep, you actually are releasing a tremendous amount of stuff, dross and these kinds of things, and layers, and so stuff in we'll say in the dirty closet of your program, your cells, and all that is being released, and more expansion can come into you. So that's
it is meditating.
Well, yeah, it's actually a fast way to do it, because since you've got smarmy is a goddamn building.
Wow, I never knew that.
I love that.
I never knew that, and I was so hard on myself because I was like, every time I try, I just kind of slip. I was. Thank you for that.
Now, actually staying awake and meditating is very helpful too, because first of all, you remember more of it, so you capture more of it, so you build your confidence and all of that, and you reframe. That's why it's also helpful. And again, non-attachment. So, okay, well, this is the way you're supposed to do meditation X, Y, and Z, except that I had the mind was going off in lots of different ways, and I'd let the thought go, and then I'd be down the road 3 blocks over with the 25,000 other thoughts that were there. And so I just came up with different ways to do it. And if someone said, do you meditate? I said, yeah. And I didn't go into it. I just did it my way. It was my own kind of thing. And it was, a very common one for me was walking the dogs, musings, walking the dogs, or walking the dog meditation. Because I was out there, I could do an awful lot of stuff that people need, their eyes closed and all that kind of stuff. And so I can see the tree or the road or the cars or whatever it is while I'm walking, let's say the dogs, but I can see all sorts of other stuff that's right there. My eyes are wide open. So I don't know if you call that's a something star, who's he something. It's just what I do. And I didn't bother about labeling it. So again, that's where I talked about the non-judgment and the non-attachment. I wanted to have fun and play. And so this is how I've done it. So everybody will do it their own way. And yes, there's a lot of people who can do it one way, and then a similar way, and then a similar way, and someone can't do it at all. They go over here, and that's fine. I just want to reiterate, because I think we touched on it, but I'm not certain. Why to put a linear kind of construct on it. Why imagination is so valuable. Why imagination is so key. So a lot of people, this brings me to who's going to take out the garbage. So a lot of people they can't wait for this, stuff out there to be over. And whether it's the financial slavery or all sorts of kinds of slavery or just this crumbling down, now they can really see it crumbling down. And then the attachment and the judgment and the smarmy and smarmetta come running right in. We're getting the male and the female right. So they come running right in. But who's going to take out the garbage, right? Or who will arrest the criminals? And again, that's judgment. Because that's the programming. That's a programming note. And I'm about to get into something that's a whole nother conversation that I'd love to play with, not right this moment, but that's that the nature of reality and how things really work is not at all the way that we think it is. Like, we think we're solid. We're not. So we think that changing up the buildings, the structures, and all those things we have, we got to tear them all down or blow them all up. But, well, yeah, some of that would be fun, just because it would let a lot of, stuff out. But we can shift all of that because it's all energy. So there's a tangibleness to it in the structure that we've created for it, in its solidity nature, but it's not actually solid. So to go back for a minute, so when people are thinking, okay, I want all this to crumble down, but who's going to take out the garbage and so on and so forth? That's where your imagination and why it's so important, because first of all, so it's not really linear as this comes and this comes and this comes, but since a lot of our brains are still in the linear thing, it's be helpful to hold it that way. So we see it crumbling down, and it's crumbling down because we're making it crumble down. We're dematerializing. We're deconstructing it. So, we are the wrecking ball or the, controlled demolition, however you want to hold those different things. We're, blowing it up. We're doing it right now because our energy is expanding and our frequency expanding, and we're letting go of the dross and we're integrating all that kind of stuff. So we're the wrecking crew right now. And so if you can get your senses around that, then you're actually the construction crew at the same time. So we're already constructing and creating and imagining and formulating all of this. And the only thing is we do it inside here first, which is where the antimatter, the realm of all potentiality and possibilities, is first. And then we bring it forth. We bring it forth right in our own core here. And then we bring it, so that it's out there, we can touch it someplace. And the imagination is how we do that, because it's our own singularity imagination, and then the co-creation with others and imagination, and the collective imagination, and the galactic center imagination. And so, because it's all of the same piece. So if you want to know who's going to take out the trash, it's you. And it's going to be via your imagination and how you all construct that. Because there are no judgments, there are no limits, there are none of those things unless you fall asleep again to put them back there. So I'm not sure if that all kind of made sense the way I put it together, but.
Well, I think so. I mean, it did for me, but then again, I'm becoming less and less linear, I think.
So Sheila, as of September 2017, what have we going?
Yes, no doubt. Because all I kept thinking for part of what you were saying there was all of this, every one of us are all imagination.
Yeah.
As we are source, folks. We are source. And so every single one of us, every single thing we see, everything we touch, everything we can just think about really is all imagination.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it is that. And it's all that and a bag of chips. Can I just say that? I mean, really.
Yeah.
And
so get taken out the trash in an imaginative way.
well, I'm sorry. I keep thinking to myself as far as that's concerned, because you're right. That comes up all the damn time. And I think to myself, as source, and I can create all of this and everything I see, I'm pretty sure I can just poof. What trash? I'm sorry. You wanted what? Taken out? I mean, yeah, that's a very linear thing to look at.
But that's why it's fun for me and I can't tell you how many beings that we've also laughed about it, because it really is a great little nugget that you can hold up that lets us see, okay, that we went to sleep again. We got small again. We closed our heart completely again. Because it's almost like this this really, well, it's a pearl of the wisdom of the false construct. Right? It's like a crystallizing moment. In that moment, you can see really what it's done. That, here we have the potential to look at all possibility and potentiality and wondrous, amazing things. And instead of going and sitting inside this, thing that I'm holding in my hand and going, wow, look at that. And oh, look at that. We're going to this crystallizing nugget of smallness, of closed offness, of totally heart shut offness, of taking out the trash. And so, again, from different perspectives, on the one hand, that's incredibly sad. I mean, so incredibly sad and wrenching. And I mean, it's really on a lot of levels devastating. And from another perspective, it's such a crystallizing point to celebrate, because like a nugget of hard carbon, we've just squished ourselves and compressed down to this little, really hard, rarefied thing. And now we can see between the two. And this is where you'll get as we talked about in the previous video, that bilocational consciousness and the trilocation, and over the last day I'm stepping on that into the multi-locational consciousness. We can see the alchemy between the two. So we were here and we traveled away from source and we got to this nugget, this hard, compact, who's going to take out the trash, as the metaphor nugget. And now we can see both, and we can see that we're all alchemists. And we're taking the alchemy from this compacted nugget of who's going to take out the trash to, we are building the new earth. We're building 5D earth and all of its components. And we're certainly not stopping there, because that's just kind of the ground floor. So from I mean, I can absolutely dance with all those different perspectives, but boy, I'm over here playing in this perspective of both where I can see it, and that celebration of us all alchemizing from the lead into the gold, the golden mean over here, and that fully ground down carbon based. I mean, that's what imagination, that's what that catalyzing frequency ability does for us. And it's sublime.
That was beautiful.
Yes. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
That was one of my favorite metaphors, I think.
You gotta love that who's gonna take out the trash.
Yes.
I still maintain, jumping back into the 3D linear, the hope would be that, there wouldn't be as much trash. First of all, I don't know. That's just me. That was a 3D linear thing to say, but it kind of makes you wonder, why is that the first thing? But anyway. But you're right, it is. And
so let's all alchemize and imaginize and alchemize and get to it.
Do it up.
Wow, this has been a good one again. They always are. They all are.
I'm imagining that I'm taking all my pearls and I'm stringing them up, and I'm going to wear them as a gentle reminder of where I've been and where I'm going.
There you go.
I think that's lovely. I'm not sure I want to wear that pearl necklace, but I think it's.
Oh.
I am imagining something completely different. Remember, I told you I jumped straight to the fantastical. So, but
you can fire them all into a condenser, which is, the combustion quantum fire that powers, your dragon chariot.
Trash incinerator?
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Hey! Why
The
not?
trash dematerializer.
There you go.
There we go. I just solved that problem.
Okay.
You're welcome. Just saying. Whatever.
Appreciate the assist.
Smarmy has to come out and play sometimes. Wow, this has really been a really good one. Do either one of you have anything you'd like to add to this before we close this energetic envelope?
Not me. That's perfect.
All right, awesome. Well, yes, all the usual things in all the usual places you can find information on both these lovely ladies' blogs in the show more section of this video, along with how to get in touch with me and how to join the Conscious Conversation Central Facebook page if you feel so led. So until next time.
Much love.